You know, there's a specific kind of silence that falls over a room when the most powerful person in the building walks in. But tonight, that silence was about to be broken by the sound of a career ending in real time, and let me tell you, it was a sound louder than any thunderclap I've ever heard. So, let's set the scene. It's Chicago, mid-December, the wind is howling off the lake like a banshee, but inside the grand ballroom of the Starlight Conservatory, the air is warm, smelling of white lilies and expensive champagne, the kind that costs more than my first car. Standing near the back, checking his watch, is Elias Thorne. Now, if you walked past Elias on the street, you wouldn't look twice. He's got this quiet way about him. Wears a tuxedo that fits well but isn't flashy, no Rolex, just a simple leather strap watch, and is standing there with a stillness that usually belongs to monks or snipers. What nobody in this room seems to realize, or maybe they just forgot because they haven't seen him in person for 3 years, is that Elias Thorne is the founder and CEO of Ethelgard Dynamics, a tech conglomerate that basically runs the back end of the modern internet, a company valued at something like $40 billion, give or take a few million. Elias had a tradition. See, every year at the company gala, he wouldn't take the limo, he wouldn't do the red carpet, he'd drive his old sedan, park in the general lot, and walk in the side door because he wanted to see his company the way the world saw it, not through the filter of a billionaire's bubble. Tonight, he was early, about 40 minutes before the keynote, and he walked over to table 1, the alpha table, the one raised on a little dais in the center of the room, draped in gold silk, and he sat down in the chair marked with a simple placard, Reserved, CEO. He was just sitting there, reviewing his speech notes on his phone, maybe thinking about his mom who used to clean floors in a building just like this, when he heard it, the click-clack of aggressive heels and the booming voice of a man who loves the sound of his own baritone. Enter Preston and Lydia van der Wyck. Now, you know these people, even if you've never met them, you know the type. Preston is the new senior VP of sales, a guy who got the job because his dad played golf with a board member. He's got hair so gelled it could withstand a hurricane and a smile that looks like it was bought at a dealership. And Lydia, his wife, is draped in a dress that screams "Look at me," holding her phone up like a shield, live streaming to her 50,000 followers, narrating her entrance like she's royalty arriving at a coronation. They spot table 1, and Preston's eyes light up like a predator spotting a wounded gazelle. He marches over, chest puffed out, and stops right in front of Elias. "Excuse me, pal," Preston says, and he doesn't ask. But it doesn't hit the stage. It hits the back of the room. It hits the man standing by the kitchen doors, the man in the simple tuxedo, the man with the Honda key in his pocket. Elias steps into the light, and the room erupts. Thunderous applause, people standing up, cheering. Maya is clapping so hard she's crying. And Elias begins to walk. He walks down the center aisle, the Red Sea parting for him. He walks with that monk-like stillness, a predator in his own domain, and as he gets closer to table 1, the blood starts to drain out of Preston van der Wyck's face so fast he looks like a wax figure melting in the sun. Lydia drops her phone. It clatters onto the china plate with a loud crack. She stares at the man she just called a waiter. The man walking towards them not with anger, but with something much worse, total, absolute authority. Elias walks right up to the dais. He stops in front of table 1. The spotlight is on him, spilling over onto Preston and Lydia, illuminating their terror for the entire room to see. The applause dies down, silence returns, but this time, it's a terrifying silence. Elias looks down at Preston, who is frozen, his champagne glass halfway to his mouth, his hand shaking so bad the liquid is rippling. "You know," Elias says into the microphone he's holding, his voice booming through the hall without him even raising it. "I was told earlier tonight that I didn't look like a leader, that I looked like I drove a Honda." He reaches into his pocket and pulls out his car keys, jingles them. The sound echoes like gunshots in the quiet room. "I do drive a Honda," Elias continues, his eyes locking onto Preston's soul. "Because my mother drove a Honda to her 3rd job cleaning floors so I could go to college. She taught me that a seat at the table isn't something you take by force, it's something you earn by character." He leans in, just a little. "And you, Preston, you're sitting in my seat. And you, Preston, you're sitting in my seat." The words hang in the air like smoke after a gunshot, heavy and suffocating. Preston van der Wyck opens his mouth, but no sound comes out, just a dry, pathetic squeak like a mouse caught in a trap. He tries to stand up, but his legs don't seem to work, his knees knock against the table, rattling the silverware, and he looks around the room desperately, searching for an ally, for a friend, for anyone who will tell him this is just a bad dream. But there are no allies here. The hundreds of faces looking back at him, the board members, the investors, his own sales team, are staring with a mixture of shock and disgust. Lydia, who 5 minutes ago was the queen of the ball, has shrunk into herself so small she looks like she's trying to disappear into the upholstery of the CEO's chair, her phone lying face down on the table like a dead beetle. Elias doesn't yell. He doesn't scream. He just stands there, holding the microphone, looking at Preston with a calm curiosity, like a scientist examining a particularly disappointing specimen under a microscope. Sir. Mr. Thorne. Preston finally manages to choke out, stumbling to his feet, knocking over his champagne glass, the liquid spilling onto his expensive trousers, looking like he wet himself. I didn't. I had no idea. The lighting in here is so bad, and you weren't wearing a badge, and... A badge? Elias interrupts, his voice smooth and cold as a frozen lake. You need a piece of plastic to tell you to treat a human being with respect? Is that how it works in your department, Preston? Dignity is strictly for people with the right lanyards. No, of course not. Preston is sweating now, profusely, beads of perspiration popping out on his forehead, ruining his perfect gelled hair. It was just a misunderstanding, a joke. We were just having fun. Right, honey. He turns to Lydia, throwing her under the bus in a heartbeat. She thought it would be funny for the vlog. Lydia's head snaps up, her eyes wide with betrayal. Me? You're the one who pulled the chair out. You're the one who snapped your fingers. Quiet, Elias says, and the word is soft, but it shuts them both up instantly. He turns to the room, addressing the audience, his employees. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration of our numbers, Elias says, pacing slowly along the edge of the dais. We hit our targets. Stock is up. We are wealthy. But tonight, I was reminded that wealth without character is just poverty in a tuxedo. He points a finger at Preston, not aggressively, but with finality. This man, your senior vice president, told me that I belong in the back. He told me that because I don't look like his idea of power, I have no value. Elias pauses, letting the weight of it settle. How many of you have felt that? How many of you have been told to move? To stay in your lane? To be grateful for scraps? A murmur goes through the room, heads nodding. The servers in the back, the ones holding the trays, they stop moving. They're watching Elias with wide eyes, standing a little taller. I built this company, Elias continues, on the idea that the best idea wins, regardless of who it comes from. But somewhere along the way, we let the rot set in. We let people like Preston believe that leadership is about bullying, about taking, about exclusion. He turns back to Preston, who is now trembling visibly. Preston, do you know why I was sitting at this table early? No, sir, Preston whispers. I was reviewing the personnel files for the upcoming promotions, Elias says. I was looking at your file, actually. Your sales numbers are high, very high. But your team retention rate? It's the lowest in the company. Your people quit. They burn out. They leave citing toxic management. I was going to ask you about that tonight. I was going to give you a chance to explain. Elias smiles, a sad, disappointed smile. But you already explained it. You showed me exactly who you are in 3 minutes. You didn't just fail a test you didn't know you were taking, Preston. You failed at being a decent human being. I can change, Preston begs, reaching out a hand. Sir, give me a chance. I'll do better. You're fired, Elias says. Simple. Clean. Effective immediately. And since you violated the code of conduct regarding harassment and creating a hostile environment, which, by the way, Lydia live-streamed to the world, thank you for the evidence, it is a termination for cause. Which means your stock options. They are gone. Your severance? 0. Preston looks like he's been punched in the gut. You can't. I just did, Elias says. Security. From the shadows, Benny steps forward. Benny is the head of event security, a 60-year-old ex-Marine who Preston had yelled at earlier for not opening a door fast enough. Benny has a smile on his face that could power a small city. Yes, Mr. Thorne. Benny asks. Please escort Mr. and Mrs. Van der Wick from the premises, Elias says. And Benny. Make sure they don't block the view for the VIPs on their way out. With pleasure, sir, Benny says, grabbing Preston by the elbow, not roughly, but with an iron grip that says move or be moved. The walk of shame is brutal. Preston and Lydia have to walk the entire length of the ballroom, past the tables of the people they tried to impress.